Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software, and today I am excited to kick off a webinar or a web series that is entirely overdue. We're going to be talking about how to start projects, what I feel is correctly, in the MEP Productivity Pack. Now, as always, of course, these webinars are recorded and will be going to our YouTube channel for your use and viewing later if you want to refresh yourself on these topics. And also, as always, we encourage you to throw questions into the questions window while we're talking about topics. And a lot of times I can answer them in line. So that's one of the big advantages of coming to these webinars live. But also, we save a huge QA session at the end. So if you wanted to hang out for that after the final thank you, or one of the first thank you, we'll be answering a number of your questions there if they don't fit in line with the webinar proper. So without further ado, let's jump in and talk about today's topic. So the MEP Productivity Pack really is an incredibly powerful collection of workflows and content for Revit, specifically focusing on the MEP trades. The trick is you got to be able to implement these workflows in the most efficient way possible for you and your team. You got to make this repeatable. You got to make it so that it's something that people can attain so you can realize these benefits. The biggest issue that I come across all too frequently is how can we make these model startup tasks to be repeatable and done right? How can we save hours of project startup time and in a lot of cases, multiple days of frustration? Well, in part one today, we're going to be talking about the first few steps of this. And in the future steps, I'll kind of outline what they're going to be as well. We have a total of 4 parts, I believe, in this series. We're going to be talking about exactly how to start today from a brand new project, or starting a new project from the template, how to load in the architectural model and potentially other trades models correctly, how to establish all of your project levels, potentially grid lines, steal scope boxes from the architect's model, and we're going to do all this in the most efficient way. And then finally, I'm going to show you exactly how I like to go through and generate all of my floor plans for the overall plans and enlarged plans, potentially key plans. And we're going to talk about how, after I'm done talking about it, how you can potentially do this in minutes instead of it being hours or spanning the whole entire life cycle of the project. You can get pretty much everything that you need right away. So we're going to go over a few very specific learning objectives. Again, I kind of outlined them before, but I'm going to outline it again. We're going to talk about what the project startup workflow is. I'm going to talk about this for the whole series, so you know exactly what's coming in future sessions as well in this 4-part series. We are going to describe exactly how the project browser is organized so you can get a really quick idea of what to expect there and how this is going to flow. We are going to establish a brand new project model, link in the architect's project model, and then do all those steps all the way up to generating floor plans for pretty much the entire project phase setup. So first of all, let's talk about the series and kind of how the order is going to progress. We're going to be talking about opening, detached, and saving as a new model. This is a pretty standard practice these days in industry. We're going to go through that step today. I'll be using Hive as the source for where I'm going to be opening that model, but you could just as easily use your network and use the open detached option. We're going to go, after we save it, we're going to use the reload links option, and we're going to talk about some key items there that you want to be aware of and how you can best set yourself up for success into the future. We are going to do the copy monitor process. We're going to actually copy monitor architectural levels. I'll talk about the grid lines process, though I won't actually do it just for time's sake. It's the same process. We're going to copy and paste into our model architect's scope boxes, though that won't be a copy monitor process. It's just a copy paste process. We're going to be going through all of that. We're going to be generating floor plan views. In future sessions, we'll be creating plan sheets, importing typical schedules and preliminary detail sheets as easily as possible, probably again using Hive. We're going to be creating spaces, zones, doing a little bit of analysis, kind of taking a look at those steps, and then at that point, you're going to begin designing. And again, in today's session, in part one, we're focusing on these 4 topics here: open, detached, reload links, copy monitor, create plans. That's all going to be covered today. So first, let's kick this off right away, jumping live into Revit with this whole open detached process. I'll show you one way, but I'm going to do it a different way. And then we're going to go through a quick browser organization recap here. So I happen to have Revit open here, of course, because that's where this works, right in Revit. I'm going to use the open command, and if I wanted to browse for my template, I could go here to my little shortcut to my MEP folder. I'm using the 20.1.1 official release at the moment. I'm going to be using the MEP Productivity Pack subfolder here with the Imperial content. That's what I'll be focusing on, though the steps for the metric side are identical for everything we are talking about in this project startup session. I'm going to be using my little starter project here. There is some documentation on how you can recreate the starter project for whatever you want, but I'm going to be going based on the starter project that pretty much is released out of the box. I have saved my own little copy. There's a couple of tweaks I've made since then, but this will be the file that I'll be using. If you wanted to use the out-of-the-box one, you could follow along with me if you have the BIM project suite installed already. You would normally use detach from central and open. Now, I'm not going to use this method. I'm going to show you a different way because I had to go browse, 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 check a box, and then open. Instead, what I'm going to be doing is using the Hive CMS here. And I've already pre-saved templates for my Revit session here. Within these templates, I can simply load this particular starter project. It defaults to detaching from central, preserving my work sets, and I can click open. This is going to pull this model from the cloud. It's going to open it in my active Revit session, and because I have the open work sets options enabled, it's going to prompt me for which work sets to open. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And this is going to start me into a brand new model. So, and just to be clear, this is entirely based, everything I'm going to be talking about today is 100% based on the 20.1.1 version, but this theory will work with any of the MEP Productivity Pack models as old as 2016. This theory works for all of them if your template is set up in a similar fashion. So you don't need the latest version. This should also work for all future versions of the pack. Same theory can work there. So this is somewhat version agnostic. All right, now this is open. I'm going to save it immediately someplace. Now where I'm going to save this, in my case, is in my temp folder, and I've made a little folder that we'll be continuing to use for the MEP project startup series here. I'm going to give this file a name. This is the MEP, this contains the MEP disciplines in version year 2020, and this is just sample office. So I'm just going to call it that. And go into my options, make sure everything is set the way that I like. I personally prefer to always regenerate my views just to make sure my cover view is nice and neat. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And this, of course, when you first save a new project model, takes a minute. So while this is saving, I'm also going to go through the exercise of pulling the architectural model into a proper directory here, the same directory. So I'm going to copy my architectural model. I'm off screen doing this, so you're not seeing it happen just right now. I'm going to go into my MEP project series folder here, and we're just going to paste that architectural model into the same folder as the MEP project model. Now you could put yours in subdirectories, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that it has some relation to the location of your MEP project after you've saved it. So I am simply putting it in the same directory just for time savings. It doesn't really matter necessarily. I can always use absolute paths, it's whatever. Okay, now that I have done that, I have the architectural model where I want it. My MEP project model is saved as indicated by no more progress bar down here on the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the next step, which is, well, first of all, before I do the next step officially, I want to take you a little bit through the browser organization so you understand this is 20.1.1 specific. In fact, it's the whole 20 release is all set up in the same exact fashion here. We're focusing on views today. So I'm going to take you through what the browser organization looks like and so you can understand exactly what each of the different levels of organization are for, so you understand how to use this and navigate it. So the first level of organization in the browser is the view classification. It's a parameter on all of our views called view classification. Those view classification properties are set by view templates within the MEP Productivity Pack. you can certainly modify those. And what they kind of represent is the design phase in which you're working. So this would be right from the model setup through initial analysis, through design development, through coordination, and then finally construction documents. You'll see that in a moment here as I jump back into the Revit space. Underneath that view classification or that design phase field is a subdiscipline. Now, we call it subdiscipline on purpose because we needed more fidelity than Revit affords us out of the box. The discipline that they give us is just mechanical, electrical, plumbing. That was it. And we wanted more fidelity for this, so we use subdiscipline as our discipline effectively. We don't use the real discipline anywhere within the browser organization for view classification, for floor plan, elevation, ceiling plan style views. And then finally, it's organized by the parameter family, which determines what kind of view is it, i.e. a floor plan, an elevation, a section, a 3D view, or whatever. And then underneath that, it's just sorted by name for those view types. So this is the organization structure that you're going to see in the project browser. In fact, I have my template configured so that it starts me, and in fact, I accidentally had this expanded. That was unintentional. I usually have my views set up so everything is nice and neatly collapsed in my template. So when an end user starts a brand new project, the views they see immediately is the cover view and their model setup views. And they start there. And in fact, even my key plan, I would typically have collapsed as well so that this is nice and compact. So the user knows the first place they're supposed to go, the first things they see is this model setup floor plan view. And that is where I'm going to go in my next step here. So from this view, we're going to do the next major step, which is to update the links. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about as it relates to updating links in an MEP project model. First off, of course, we're going to use the regular traditional Revit insert manage links workflow. And for each of the models that we need to see from outside partners, whether that be the architecture model, the structural model, perhaps other consulting discipline trades, maybe it's electrical if I'm mechanical and we're not coordinating together in the same model, I might reload theirs, kitchen equipment, you name it. Whatever that might be, you're going to use the reload from option to streamline that reload process. Now, this is the note that I want to make sure that you understand. And I've seen people do this and it causes them pain in the future when they do get models. I recommend that you do not remove links that you don't need right now today. Chances are, at some point in the future, you may need those links. And our view templates are already set up to understand how they're supposed to work. But if you remove them, all of the view templates across the entire MEP Productivity Pack forget about those links. And when you relink them in the future, you will have to manually go set all of them up. And that can be frustrating. Also, all of the links that we've placed in here are already inserted origin to origin. They're already pinned in place. And that way you don't have to worry about coordinating that. Now, if the other design team members are leveraging the proper origins, and hopefully they are, if they are, then your model setup is super simple. If they are not, the most important model that you need to pay attention to is the architecture model. Technically, that's the God model, and you will align everything that you do to it. Even if it's wrong, it's right. So, yeah. What I will do with these links that I don't need is simply leave them alone. Just leave them not loaded. They start not loaded, leave them not loaded, because you don't need to do anything with them. So what I'm going to do is now reload specifically the architectural model. So I'm going to go to Insert, Manage Links, just like I called out there. I'm going to go to this A20 model. This is the architecture model, and you can see a number of other disciplines and subdisciplines here at play. Just look at the first letter. It'll kind of indicate sort of what it is, and of course the rest of the description there as well. But this A20 architectural model, I'm simply going to do a reload from. You can ignore the save path. It's whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's not loaded anyway. So I'm just going to reload now, in my case, this architectural model, this A20 model, open it up. And once this finishes loading, if you want to, you can change the path type here to be relative if you're storing it locally, or if this is in BIM 360, certainly you would just reload from the BIM 360 model, and that's going to be fine. Now, in this case, there's some geometrical issues. This is not a big deal. This is just because there was a model loaded before, and there might be some items in here that I forgot to delete out of my template. We might find them later, and if that's the case, well, then I'll make a note and clean them up for future templates, future editions. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK here. And again, like I said, if you want to, you can set this path to relative. That's up to you. It's whatever. The important thing is that the status for this model is loaded, and any of these models that I do not need, they're set to not loaded. And I'm going to click OK. All right, now along with this load, there's one more thing that I tend to do right now. And that is, before I do my copy monitor, I'm going to take this building scope box right here, and I'm going to move it and stretch it to fit around the architecture model. Now, there's also some elevation marks and some section marks out here. I like to grab all of them all at once. So I'm just going to go up here and do a big window selection across all this stuff here in the middle. You'll notice that the architecture model did not highlight because it's much larger than that little selection window. Just to be absolutely certain, I'm going to double check. I got the elevations, I got the project base point, which I do not want to move. I'm going to uncheck that. I got the scope boxes scope box that I do want to move, and then the views. There's 6 views apparently that I've selected, and the reason for that is there are 2 sections, and the little arrowheads on the elevations are considered views as well, so they are all selected, and that's what I want. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to simply drag this, and very conveniently, this particular building model is just about the same size as the sample model, so I don't have to do a lot of stretching. Now, the reason why I am moving this as I have is because there are a ton of other level 1 and roof level floor plan views already existing in this project, and they're already associated to this overall building scope box. So by me simply moving this a little bit like I have, it's updating all of those views. And I'm just kind of stretching it a little bit. I could use arrow nudging on my keyboard, whatever, just to kind of get this to move kind of where I want. Every time I nudge, though, I tend to not use nudge so much here because it's really slow. In my opinion, I usually kind of drag and then, pull it around. But it's whatever you want to do. This note that's out here, I'm going to delete it. I don't need it. This overall site property line here, if I really wanted this to match the entire site, I would probably just grab this scope box here and drag this out, which of course is stretching the site boundary. In the electrical site plan, if you're doing electrical work, that might be meaningful here. So it's going to adjust that scope box as well. Okay, now that I'm done with that, it's time to move on to the next step, which is copy monitor. And then we're going to get into the meat of the really interesting part of what I think is going on here today. So within here, I'm going to go to either of these 2 building sections. Your choice. Doesn't matter which one. You just go to one of them. I personally like the one that's kind of east-west cutting, looking towards the north side of my building. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click on that and open up this part of my building. And I want to show you a little bit of what's going on with the levels in this template. So the documentation that originally came with the MEP Productivity Pack, and the one that's technically in the 20.1.1 release as well, indicates that we have 10 levels. And technically, you could. If you wanted to, you could have the 10-level workflow. If you started from the sample model, use our instructions to cut a new template. You could choose to not be as aggressive as we were with this template, and just don't delete the other 8 levels inside the building. But what I've found is that a lot of our customers tend to have somewhat shorter buildings. They're not using 10 levels, and they do a lot of subtraction style work. We do have a Dynamo routine that comes along with it, but if you're not a Dynamo expert, you don't feel comfortable using that, it can be kind of cumbersome for you to leverage that routine to sort of strip stuff out. And if you have different build versions, it can be kind of frustrating. So we like to do an additive workflow instead of a subtractive workflow. Since pretty much every project I've ever worked on has at least a ground floor and a roof level, I leave those 2, and then anything else inside of here is whatever you want to do. Now, in my case, I'm just going to make sure that my level 1 aligns with the architect's level 1, and it looks right now like that is the case. I am going to intentionally align my roof level to their roof level. Just coincidentally align them together. I'm not going to lock them, just align them. And I'm going to use this to my advantage here in a moment. That's pretty much the only setup that I need to do. Now, at this point, I can do copy monitor, and that's my next step. So I'm going to go here to collaborate, copy monitor. I'm going to select the link that I want to copy monitor from, and that's going to be the architecture model. Just mouse over it, make sure that it says architectural and it has the right model name that I'm expecting here. Go ahead and select that. I'm going to check my options first to make sure everything is set up the way that I want it. Now I'm going to be focusing on levels, but you could do this exact same thing for the grids. You would check your options for this as well, and if you wanted their bubble, you could pull their bubble into your project, copy the original type, or use your bubble, or it's up to you. For the levels, though, there is an option that I am very specifically going to be setting, and that is reusing matching levels. Now, you notice my level 1 and the architect's level 1 match. My roof level and their roof level match. My names are different, but the physical position, the elevation of them is identical. And that's the key. And I don't even care if there's any kind of an offset. So it's 0 offset. I don't want to be trying to kind of play games with that. I'm just going to let it be 0. If they match exactly, that's what I want it to do. Not adding any prefixes or suffixes in my case. Of course, you have your own options. You can do whatever you want there. But I'm now going to start my copy command. I'm going to do a multi-copy. Big crossing selection here across all of the architect's levels. And I'm just going to do a quick filter to make sure all I got were their levels. If there was any levels from them that you did not want to copy monitor, simply exclude them and don't copy monitor them. Totally fine. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this is what I wanted. I got just the levels that I want, and I'm going to hit finish. Now, for whatever reason, Revit likes to take an absolute eternity for this. And I'm going to use this opportunity to make sure that I mention something. When you cut your template, if you're making a brand new template for yourself, when you cut that from the starter project model and you save it, one of the things you're probably going to want to do is make sure that the work set you leave it on, just like how I left my project browser neat, or should have, the work set that you leave it on should be the one that you want users leveraging right away when they first start. Because when people first jump into a model that has work sets and they start doing all this setup, they tend to forget to set this. And then all of these levels and the scope boxes we're about to copy and a bunch of other things, the grid lines, they might go to the wrong work set, and that can cause frustrations. So I like to just err on the side of leaving this as the default when we first kind of save that model. And then that just saves me a bit of headache, because usually it's me who's starting these models up, honestly. And it just makes it a little easier for me. I'm just giving myself a little leg up in the game. So keep an eye on that when you're saving your own templates. Make sure that the work set is correct. Okay, those levels now have been copied and monitored. And I'm basically done with that copy monitor command. Again, you could certainly go in there and copy grid lines if you want to. You could do batch copy of wall objects if you wanted to. I do not personally ever copy monitor the architect's lighting fixtures, if they have them, or their plumbing fixtures. In the MEP Productivity Pack, we've got documentation on how we recommend you go through the workflow. Gives you a much more sustainable set of actions when you place your own objects, and you don't rely directly on architecture elements, because that can give you a lot of headache. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this workflow here, and there's one final step with these levels as a part of my copy monitor workflow that I always do, and that is I'm going to select every one of these, grab just the levels in my project, and I'm going to set the scope box right here. I'm going to make it match the building scope box. And what this will do is make in every single view, every single section, everywhere in my building, it'll make all of these levels have the exact same extent. Saves me all kinds of headaches. Quick note about how these levels are working out. Notice how my level 1 formatting is now identical to the architect's level 1 formatting. And if you wanted to, you could now go through view templates and turn off all of the architect's levels in anything that is not a part of model setup. And in fact, I think that may already have been done for you. My roof level also has been renamed from roof or R level or something level R. I can't remember what it was called, but it's been formatted to match the architect's roof level. And one final thing this has done, because the architecture model happened to have been using the View Creator product here in the CTC Productivity tab, the tool that we're going to use next, because they were using this, when I copy monitored their levels, I also got their, where is it here, View Creator abbreviation. Well, their parapet doesn't have one, of course. The roof level here has the R, or level 4 here has 04. This harvested the abbreviation directly from the architect's model. We'll take a look at configuring that later, but know that if they did use View Creator, you can actually get those properties copied into your project on the initial copy monitor process. Okay, that's about it from the copy monitor side. Now it's time, well, actually that's not entirely true. There's one more step in copy monitor that we want to do, and that is copying the scope boxes from the architect's model into our project. Now, the view that I like to use for this is the building 3D reference view. And I'm using this view on purpose because I know you are going to have to make a change to a setting that exists in the model because it's not set up for you to do this immediately. I'm going to show you exactly what the setting is. This particular view does not currently have a view template enabled on it. This is why I'm using this particular view. Everything's all, grayed out and kind of subdued in the background. But the purpose of this view for me is to find and select the architect's area scope boxes. When they have area plans, the enlarged plans that they're going to be making, I want to steal those scope boxes if I possibly can. So what I want to do is see them. Right now I'm not seeing them. And that is because in visibility graphics, by default, in this view, for whatever reason, the annotation categories are 100% turned off. Now I'm going to turn them on intentionally, and you may want to do this in your template before you save it so that you don't have to do this manually in the project. I left it this way because if I did it magically, you'd be like, well, Sean, how come mine doesn't work? It's because it's off by default. So I'm going to scroll down to scope boxes, and in future editions of this, I'm hoping to remember to turn this on for you, so it'll already be there in the template that we cut. But I'm going to just turn on scope boxes. Show annotations, scope boxes only. I don't care about anything else. I don't want anything else. I just want the scope boxes. So I'm going to click OK here. Now, when I turn these scope boxes on, what you'll notice is that I'm seeing the architect's, I'm seeing my overall building scope box. I'm seeing the architect's overall building scope box in here as well. Of course, I'm seeing my scope box out here for the site view. But inside the architect's model, if you tab here, notice there's their building overall scope box. If I tab again, I'm going to get one of their little area enlarged plan scope boxes. I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to tab one more time and hold my control key down and select the next one. If there was more, I would let go of my control key, tab for the next one, move my mouse, tab for it, control key, select each one of these until I have all of them. Once I have all of their enlarged plan scope boxes, I don't care about their overall building, I just care about their enlarged plan. I'm going to Control C to copy on my keyboard. You could also come up here and just use the copy to clipboard option. That might work better. And then I'm just going to do paste from clipboard. And what that's going to do is directly paste those scope boxes into my model with the exact same name that they had from the architect's model and the exact same boundaries they had from the architect's model. I don't have to do anything for these, and I'm going to be able to use them later in my workflow. All right. Now that I have the architect's scope boxes exactly copied, however it is they've defined them, I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is plan view creation. Now, when you're creating plan views, let's just kind of talk about this workflow real quick. You're going to be using basically the CTC productivity tool, BIM Project Suite, the view creator tool. Now, there's a bunch of settings inside of here. I'm not going to be going through, in the PowerPoint, the actual settings, because they're really going to be determined by what it is you want, how you want your plan view names to be set up in your model. I'm going to show you my preference. You can kind of follow this if you want to, but the whole purpose of this view creator tool is to customize these view names for your own purposes. Now, if you don't like any of our view names in the MEP productivity pack, you could certainly be more aggressive and delete all of the floor plans out of the model, 100%. I've left a number of level 1 floor plans and roof plans that are already there. But again, if you don't like those view name conventions, delete them all and just use the view creator to create your own view names, named exactly how you want them named, okay? So let's go into Revit here and actually do this ourselves. Now, I'm going to collapse the model. Well, I'm going to collapse some of the model setup over here, but I'm going to expand out a bunch of other things over here so you can see what is about to happen. Normally, I wouldn't expand all these because I don't need to, but I want you to visually see what is about to take place here. If you remember earlier, I was talking about sort of the project development cycle here. Model setup is the bottommost collection. After you do model setup, there's load calculations, and there's existing building modeling and energy model, design modeling, design analysis. There's all kinds of stages as you move up here, getting toward your construction permit drawings. Within every one of these different stages in the dev cycle, there are either 3D views or floor plan views that come into play. And every one of these views has associated view templates that go along with them. And the view creator has the ability to make all of these views automagically for you. So as long as you are going to be following this workflow using the user guide that comes with the MEP Productivity Pack for the purpose of these views, you can reauthor these custom to any building it is that you're working on. That's the purpose of this next step. If you're going to be doing existing building work, same thing. You can use this to create the existing views. I'm not going to be doing that step today. I will be doing all the design views here. So if I go to HVAC design views or power, floor plans, or ceiling plans, right? There are some views that are already in here, and I'm going to be recreating all of the other floors using the exact same naming conventions. Design analytics, floor plans for lighting, for plumbing, coordination views inside of here, construction permit views inside of here. All of these views are ready to go. And all I have to do, and in fact, I left one behind accidentally. I want to get rid of that. I don't need the enlarged plan because that's not relevant for my active building yet. It will be, but not yet. But I'm going to go through and now build out all of the other floors for this particular structure. So basement level, 2, 3, 4, and then if there's anything that I'm missing, or if I just get a little lazy and decide to do my level 1s as well and my roof levels as well, just in case, the view creator will help me with that process. So let's go through the exercise now of building up all of these floor plan views. So I'm going to go to the View Creator tool here on the CTC BIM project suite. This lets you 100% tailor the exact views that you want in your project for what it is you're doing. If you're only doing electrical, only make electrical views. If you are only doing new construction, don't make any existing or demo views, right? It's all up to you for exactly what it is you're going to be authoring inside of here. Now I'm going to start my journey on the Plan and Ceiling tab. I'm using the latest and greatest edition of the View Creator tool in 24.1, the tools, because it has some really nice new functionality here. You can choose the exact order in which you want your different portions of your name to be generated. So if I wanted levels first, I could choose level here, and it'll slide the exact view template box over here to the right. And it even shows you down here how your name format is going to be assembled. Level, view template, phase, scope box. If I wanted scope box before phase, I could simply choose that, and it would move it around inside of here. So the way that I like to set this up is I like to match exactly what's going on over here, which is the view template name portion, and then the level portion. For me, it makes it a lot easier to select things in later steps here, and it also kind of organizes things nice and neat because they're already being organized by the sub-discipline and view type. It just kind of makes it easier, I think, for me to navigate this. So the way that this is going to work is for the view collections here, I'm simply going to be choosing view templates that I want to be building, the levels for which I will be building those views, the phase they're going to associate to, and then finally, if there's a scope box to associate, what that's going to be as well. And on some of these, you have the ability to choose not to, even though you're setting the property, you can choose to not actually put any kind of abbreviation in the view name when it builds it. For example, every time I build brand new views for new construction, I don't say new construction on every one of them. That's kind of silly. When I do existing views, I may very well say existing. Or I might be using a view template that already says existing. So again, I might not need an extra existing abbreviation. I'm just setting the property of what the phase is. So here, I'm going to be doing entirely new construction views today. I'm going to be doing all of the building overall views, and I don't really want it to say building for every one of these. I'm just going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to go through and start choosing what the view types are. Oh, sorry, let's also do the levels here. So for my levels, I'm going to be doing 0 through roof. I don't care about the parapet. The dynamic legend is just there as a control view for all of my dynamic legends. So I'm just going to be checking all of these boxes right here. Also, View Creator has a really nice new little drag and select feature. So it makes it so you're not clicking each individual box, check, 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 a little bit faster. Over here now, I'm just going to start picking for floor plan orientations, what views it is I want to make. I'm going to stretch this a little wider here so I can see the names of the entire view template. It'll collapse the other two columns out here. So with this, I'm just going to start going through, and I'm skipping all of the existing stuff. I'm skipping the lighting stuff because most of that's going to be ceiling plan work, with the exception of the analytics. I will be creating the analysis view right here. I'm going to skip the floor plan working view. That's probably going to be a ceiling plan view as well. Power plan, though, I do want. I don't need a site electrical plan because that's based on level 1 and that already exists in my model. Now I could choose to create it if I really wanted to, but it's unnecessary and I won't be creating a site plan for all of these levels. So I'm just going to be creating just the power plan here. I'm also going to be creating systems floor plans if I'm doing the low voltage system style work. If you're doing fire protection, I probably would do this as a ceiling plan, though I might do an F protection plan for floor plans, and then my sprinkler layout might be a ceiling plan style view. You can just choose which orientation it is that you want. I'm going to do down here the design views for this as well. In fact, up on the top, I probably want to do a power floor plan working view. I don't want to skip that. Those working views are incredibly powerful. Systems views, I probably want the working views for that as well. That's going to get me these working views all kind of built up. Scrolling down my list, if I go to the model setup plans, if I wanted them for multiple floors, I can certainly build those out as well. If I wanted my CAD export views for my AutoCAD views, I can go ahead and get those ready to go just by making those export views for all of my levels straight out. The HVAC design and floor plans, the zone diagram I absolutely want for a future step, so I'm going to be building that. All the analytical views, friction loss views here. Let's take a look here. Mechanical floor plan, I'm going to skip that one because I have the HVAC view and I'm going to be good with that one. Let's just kind of see here. Piping design, the piping floor plan. I probably should not be doing the roof level for some of these because I'm going to get a piping floor plan and then later a piping roof plan for just the roof level. But that's something I can deal with a little bit later on. My domestic water and waste plans, I want those, as well as design, fixture units potentially for my analytics, general floor plan. I want my velocity diagram view here. And then, of course, I would probably have a piping roof plan, but that one already exists as well. So I don't have to worry about that because my roof plans are already done. In fact, if I really wanted to cheat the system, I can just uncheck the roof level and not worry about it because I've already got those roof plans. That's why I left the roof level. They're already built up, and it just saves me all kinds of headache. All right, now that I've got most of the views checked that I want, and I can always come back here and check more if I really need to, what I'm going to be doing is simply selecting Create Views. Just looking here, I don't have any prefixes. It's going to use the view template, the level, the phase, the scope box, no suffix. And one other thing before I quickly create these, I'm going to jump into options and just make sure that I have this set up right. I can't pull it off to the side now, but I don't need to. You'll notice down here, there's no spaces between the hyphens. If you like the space dash space, you could certainly add that. It just makes the view names longer, and so I tend to not use it. With this view creation also, I personally prefer to persistently apply the view templates, though with the new version of View Creator, you can actually apply it the template property and not have it persistently applied. So over in the properties window, it wouldn't say, view template name. It would just have the properties of that view template. I like it persistently applied, so when I make updates to them for my particular project, it updates for all my floor plan views at the same time, and it saves me all kinds of headaches in management. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK on this because it was already set up the way that I wanted it, or I could actually click Cancel because I didn't make any changes to it, and tell this to add all of my views to the list. This is going to build me up however many views it needs to build up. If I was to scroll down this list, you'll see a bunch of these show up in red because a lot of these different plan view types already exist. That's why it's highlighting them in red. So it's not going to create those ones. Anything that's in white, it will actually create. So I'm going to go ahead and create these views. Run through, let this create. I don't know how many views this is going to be, but it's going to generate a bunch of them. Now, had I not been talking, this probably would have taken me all of 3 minutes to check the boxes and tell it to go. And then the 60 seconds that it takes to generate these views, give or take, it happens pretty quickly here. But the important thing is that all the way up until now, again, I've been talking a lot, and we're only 40 minutes in, and I'm going to get 100 plus floor plan views. I'm not even sure how many, but tons of floor plan views built up. And then we're going to come back and do one extra step, which is to build the master plans or the overall views. And we're going to build up some dependents inside of those as well. So it's going to save us even time with those enlarged plans and the naming conventions for them. So let this rip, and I'm going to come back, and just for the construction document views, I'm not going to do this for the analytical or design views. There we go, 93 were built, 17 were failed because they already existed. That's all those red ones. I'm just going to ignore that. I don't need to watch for that. But 93 floor plans built up with all of my naming conventions. I'm going to take this and clear all, and then come back through and just pick out the ones that I need. So my construction document fire protection plan potentially here, the floor plan, HVAC floor plan. If I go up to the top here, power plan, we'll do domestic and DVW, and this is all going to be the enlarged plans. Just add those to my list, and I'm going to create those views as well. So these are the enlarged master plans. It's going to group them right next to the main floor plans, but this lets me have different scales. So I can have my main floor plans, say, at 1/8 inch or 16th inch per foot, and then the enlarged plan views at, the 1 scale level higher or 2 scale levels higher. So this created an additional 25 floor plan views. So we're at about 125, 120 floor plan views all built up so far. Now I'm going to move on to the next major step here. And if I pull over to the side, you'll notice I have the main floor plan, the overall plan, and then I've got the enlarged plan, which normally I'd be right-clicking now and duplicating as dependent over and over again. But here, I'm going to go to my dependent views very specifically. It's kind of got my views all jumbled together here. What I'm going to do is find anything that ends with enlarged. This makes this real easy. And now all I have to do is, for all of these enlarged plan views, take areas A and B and duplicate them as dependents, pull this back to the side, create my dependent views. And this is going to take and just duplicate each of those and suffix the name appropriately and set the scope box for areas A and B. If I had more areas, there's 50 more floor plan views. We're at about 175 floor plan views here, all done, ready to go. And this didn't take me a whole lot of time. So this makes this process, again, really, really fast. All right. Close this down. We'll just take a look at what this built up for me. Let's just go to my HVAC level 1 floor plan that was built here. This is the overall floor plan, has the view template M HVAC floor plan associated to it. Already knows what scope box it's supposed to be on, just like level 2 has. They're both basically the same. Level 2, same thing, has the name or the view template, has the scope box associated. Looking at the enlarged floor plans over here, I didn't associate a scope box. Well, maybe I did. I can't remember. I guess I did associate a scope box to these. But what really matters is these enlarged area A and area B plans, because it's already cut to the boundary, exactly matching what the architect had set up. If I go to area B over here, it's the area B plan with that area B scope box associated, has the same view template. And because of how my view templates are configured right now, I believe I have the ability, yep, I can change the scale. So it defaults to whatever the scale of the main view template is. But I could take, say, all of these master plan views or these enlarged, enlarged plans here if I wanted to, and set all of their scales to 1/4 inch per foot. And when I do that, all of the nested views here also automatically become 1/4 inch per foot. That's just how Revit works. So I've got all of my enlarged plans here, at least for the HVAC construction document views, all set up and ready to go. And at this point, it's time for me pretty much to start doing some preliminary design. And that's what the next major step could be. Now I'm going to go ahead and collapse all these views or collapse this selected section here. Let's collapse this selected section. We will re-expand this out, go to model setup, the architectural plans here, and we've got all these views here as well in case we need to kind of coordinate anything. But that's it. That's plan view creation. In me talking for 45 minutes, I set up over 170 floor plan views for this building with all view properties associated, the architect's model linked in the correct location, scope boxes set, levels copy monitored, and it's time to design. Now we're going to do a couple of extra steps in the next session that we're going to have, part 2 of this. So let's talk about what's coming in the next session so you know what to expect. Within this project startup workflow, today we just did all the open detach save as, we reloaded the links, we copy monitored, and we created floor plan views. Part 2, we're going to talk, because every one of those construction document floor plan views is probably going to need a sheet, including the enlarged plans. How do we do that? How do we build those sheets efficiently? So we're going to be talking about that particular task in the next part 2 session. And we're also going to be talking about placing all of those views on those sheets as efficiently as possible. So creating the sheets and placing views. And then we'll be talking about some of the other steps in the other future sessions. I'll be talking about importing typical schedules and prelim detail sheets, kind of cartooning out your project just as the team gets going. Of course, they can always bring in more as they need to. We're going to be talking about automating the creating of spaces, zones, and analytics, and then we're going to let you get on with your project and start doing the work that you want to do. All right. So with that, for those of you who are not going to hang out for the QA session, I'm going to start by saying thank you. And we look forward to seeing you in the next session here, part 2 of this series, which if you pay attention to the CTC events page, you'll know exactly when that's coming. I would recommend you get subscribed to that. Also, I would recommend you subscribe to our YouTube channel because when this video goes live, you'll be notified that it's up there right away, and you'll be able to get back to it real easy then. One final thank you for all of you. One more time, I'm going to remind you, take a look at the events page at ctcsoftware.com to find out when the next follow-up session for this is up and coming. We hope that you're going to find that very meaningful. I've come up with some really cool workflows I'm excited to share with you that I think you're going to find pretty cool using Excel, a tool we're already all familiar with, and certainly all of CTC's other events that we have on our site. We encourage you to kind of sign up for those as well. So with that, one final thank you. We look forward to seeing you in future CTC webinars. Have a fantastic day.